It began like any other train journey. A whistle, a lurch, the rhythmic clatter of wheels against tracks. The passengers aboard the Luminara Express, a state-of-the-art luxury train, had settled into their opulent compartments. Some sipped champagne, others admired the rolling countryside through the panoramic windows. But when they woke, everything had changed. The world outside was a blur, an endless haze of indeterminate light. The train's movement was constant, never slowing or stopping. Time itself seemed meaningless. Conversations about destinations or the reason for boarding yielded only confusion. No one remembered buying a ticket, let alone stepping onto the train. It wasn't until they noticed the calendar in the dining car, stuck on the year 2209, that they began to suspect the horrifying truth. Elise Hart, a historian traveling for a long-forgotten reason, was among the first to question the train's purpose. She prowled the corridors, speaking to the other passengers. Most seemed dazed, trapped in routines that felt both foreign and familiar. "What's the last thing you remember before waking up here?" she asked Victor, a gruff engineer in a tattered suit. "Boarding," he muttered, furrowing his brow. "Except, I can't recall why, or where. Damn strange, isn't it?" In the dining car, Elise found an ornate plaque, "The Luminara Express, bringing you eternity." Its cryptic tagline only deepened her unease. The ticket collector was a towering figure with an imposing presence, dressed in an immaculate uniform. He moved silently through the train, checking tickets no one remembered receiving. His face was expressionless, his voice a monotone echo. When Elise confronted him, holding up her blank ticket, he merely stared. "Your journey continues, Miss Hart," he intoned before walking away. Elise's frustration grew. "Who is he?" she asked Victor later. "Where does he go when he isn't stalking the aisles?" Victor shrugged. "Some say he's a machine. Others think he's something else. But I've never seen him leave the train." Elise began to notice peculiarities aboard the train. Meals in the dining car were served piping hot, yet the kitchen remained empty. The outside world, if it could be called that, never changed, a swirling void of light and shadow. More disturbingly, some passengers started to vanish. Victor explained it in hushed tones. They ask the collector too many questions, or they just stop. One day they're here, the next gone. No one even remembers them. Terrified but determined, Elise pressed forward, poring over every inch of the train. In a forgotten storage car, she found an old ledger filled with names. Many were crossed out. Next to her own, written in spidery script, was a date, today's date. The discovery pushed Elise to take a greater risk. She followed the collector during his rounds, trailing him to the last car of the train. It was locked, its door engraved with strange symbols that seemed to shift when she looked away. Desperate for answers, Elise confronted the collector again. "What is this place? Why are we here?" He studied her for a long moment before replying, "This train carries those who have lost their way. To seek the truth, you must pay the price." "What price?" He gestured to the locked door. "Enter, and you'll know." Elise hesitated but felt she had no choice. She unlocked the door with trembling hands and stepped inside. The car was unlike anything she had seen. An endless hall of mirrors reflecting infinite versions of herself. As she moved forward, the mirrors came alive, replaying fragments of her life, moments she'd forgotten or suppressed. A childhood argument with her mother. The long hours spent burying herself in work after a failed relationship. A final, tragic memory of stepping onto the tracks of a commuter train, her world collapsing in grief. Her knees buckled as realization dawned. The Luminara Express wasn't a train at all. It was a liminal space, a purgatory for souls unwilling to face their past. Emerging from the mirror car, Elise confronted the collector once more. "We're dead, aren't we?" He nodded. "This is a place between endings, a journey for those who cannot let go." "Why keep us here?" she demanded. "It is not I who keeps you here," he replied. "It is you." Every passenger aboard this train clings to something they cannot release. A regret, a grudge, a fear. The train will only stop when you decide to move forward. Elise shared what she'd learned with Victor and the others. Reactions were mixed. Some were angry, others incredulous. A few passengers chose to seek the mirror car for themselves. In time, Elise realized her own burden. She had spent her life searching for meaning in history, but when confronted with her own story, she had turned away. To move on, she had to face her pain and forgive herself. One by one, passengers began to disappear, not vanishing, but stepping off the train into a bright, undefined horizon. When Elise finally let go, the collector smiled for the first time. The Luminera Express continues its endless journey, carrying those trapped between life and death. For those brave enough to uncover its secrets, the cost of truth is steep, but the reward is freedom. And for those who refuse, the train rides on, its whistle echoing through the void, promising eternity to all who board.